introduction that Dr. Hong really put me to the test, to the task. If any one of you fall asleep, I would fail. Okay, that is a tall order of challenge. Okay, great. So allow me to start out saying a short story that many of you can relate it in your personal experience. Some 10 years ago, nearly 10 years ago, I began to travel between Columbus, Ohio and Taipei. And because I have an appointment in Ohio State at that time, and then I was beginning to set up my lab here at the GRC. And I was invited to supervise a journal club in Dr. Wenhua Li's laboratory. And Dr. Li was my senior, and then he said, well, I'm traveling all over the place a lot of time, and then I have a lot of members in my lab, and then they run journal club. Well, can you coach them? Can you watch them, how they do it? And I reluctantly say yes. I emphasize, I reluctantly say yes, because that took out my time, right? So I went to their first journal club, and I sat there. Within 5 minutes, I was saying, oh my God, this is bad, very bad. And then I thought, okay, could be just the speaker was not doing the right thing. So I went the second week. Oh my God, this is bad, double bad. So after 3 times, I concluded that this is totally unacceptable. Let me describe to you the journal club scenario that still happening in many of Taiwan's laboratory. So the speaker having a chair behind the computer. First, the speaker never stood up. The speaker was sitting on the chair, staring at the computer with the pointer holding on his hand, and then begin to speak. At all time, from the first minute to the last minute, his eyes stare only at the computer. Make absolutely no eye contact. As I'm doing right now, making eye contact. You can be assured if you fall asleep, I would know. Okay, so, and then he was just doing, okay, this paper presents this, this is a figure 1. And then he used the pointer like this. And then, so it's just, and then what is the consequence of this kind of way of delivering? Put yourself in their shoes. What I have found is that the audience, within the first 3 minutes, there will be people pulling out their iPhones. There will be people opening up their the iMac or MacBook. Nobody pay attention to that speaker was talking about. And the speaker just carry out his talking, and at the very end they say, I'm done. Everybody clapped the hand, they left. Is that unusual? You probably found that many times in Taiwan. But let's take the scenario to US, where I served for many years in Ohio State University. One thing that is very, very different here is that at Ohio State University, we drill our graduate students over and over and over again that they have to do a good job in giving the talk. And the reason is very simple. Because, number 1, that is an essential skill, as I have pointed out right there. As Dr. Hong said that no matter where you go, even not in the research environment, you still have to communicate well. Okay? Second, the American professor have no patience whatsoever to have collective waste of time. What do I mean by collective waste of time? The guy was spending time in delivering the talk, but nobody paid attention to it. And everybody was doing their own thing. That is what I call collective waste of time. If we have 100 people right here, if I do a lousy job, everybody wastes their time. In US, that's unacceptable. And so strangely, in Taiwan, it's so common. And the PI sometimes would not even say very much at all. And I hasten to say that even some of the PI could not do a good job. That is the problem. So if the PI cannot do a good job, the student learn from the PI and thought that those are acceptable. That is the problem. Unfortunately, many PIs do not realize that. That is so critical. All right, so what I claim, I have a claim right here. How to give an effective talk is really the very, very important essential skill that you can take away with you. This is a kind of skill, what I keep mentioning is a transferable skill. You can transfer with you. Going from one place to the other, you can learn. That can benefit you. But let me build my argument a little bit, provide a little bit evidence. As a scientist, we like to see evidence, right? I say that's essential skill number one. What's the evidence there? Okay, the question is, why should you even bother? Why should you care, right? So now, in 2014, there's an editorial in Science written by the Science editor at the time. And this person, Marsha McNutt, is presently the U.S. National Academy of Science president. So she is a very big scientist. And so at the time, she served as the editor of the Science. And then it's entitled, the article, the editorial entitled, Outside of the Lab. Now, so in this particular editorial, there's two passages, two paragraphs. First, in this editorial, she talked about that they were concerned about students' future because many of the students would not be able to end up in academia. They would move on to industrial job or all sorts of jobs. But are they ready? So they surveyed the industry, survey different sectors of the leadership, asking the participant, okay, and they are asking different leadership, say, what kind of skill are not sufficiently covered in most of the traditional science PhD, but are highly valued in many non-lab positions. So they have a seminar, web seminar, internet seminar. The participant asked this question. So lo and behold, communication skills are near the top of our list. Particularly the ability to explain complex scientific concepts to the diverse audience. That's very close to the top. So you can now rest assured, if you go to work for a company, they would screen you on how you communicate. They would not hire somebody who cannot communicate. That's very important. But communication consists of many, many different skills. And there was, of course, speaking, what we're doing here now, and or writing, etc. And today, I would focus my talk on how to do a good presentation, effective presentation. You can do a presentation, but that's non-effective, or that's useless. So you want to learn how to deliver effective presentation, effective talk. Now, to give a talk about this word, talk, is quite interesting. In Taiwan, when we typically say, oh, I went to a seminar. Seminar. That sounds so academic, right? When I was a graduate student, we have to give many talks. And one time I finished the talk, and then some of the professor came to me and said, that was a very good talk. I was taken a little bit aback. I said, are you belittling me? You should say that that was a very good seminar. So it took me a little while to understand why they say that it's a talk. All right? So the talk essentially is about giving a story. But in science, it's talking about a scientific story. So then they appraise you, praise you to whether you can give a good talk. That means that whether you can deliver a good story. And oftentimes, if you meet the American professor, they will say, oh, that was a very good story. And then you will say, okay, I just give a story. So there is a major conceptual difference of this word story between the West and East. In West, also in Japan, The ability to give a good story is very much valued. Okay? But in Taiwan, how do we use the story in the context of our culture? Here, I'm going to speak a little bit Taiwanese. And then I will translate into English a little bit. Okay? So, 哎，你搞囡仔咧吵，佢講一個故事，互伊去困。Story. Oh, the baby is making a lot of fuss. Why don't you tell that baby a little bit of story so the baby can go to sleep? Seemingly belittle story. But if you think carefully, the ability to tell a good story is very important. Just think about in the ancient time, our ancestors, when they have no writing tools, how do they propagate information? How do they propagate experience? By word of mouth. By the way of telling a story. So the person who can tell a good story often becomes the leader of the community. So you see, that is why in the West, they emphasize a lot on your storytelling ability. In fact, you just think about the guy, the person who can write a good script that will be made into the movie, that can earn the person a lot of money, right? So it is a very important skill. Now, so you have to tell a story. Every talk will tell a story. Now you recall. So far, nobody falling asleep, but you recall when I began this talk, I told you a story. A very personal story. Story bring people to your fold, close to you, that they can relate it to each other. So then you will be questioning, okay, how could we make science into a story? Yes, you can. It just requires your creativity every single time. And I will try to tell you. Now, here is the good talk pathway. We scientists love pathway. Absolutely love pathway. This pathway, that pathway. And then we love to draw circle. This cell, that cell, nucleus, mitochondria, we draw circles. Okay? So this is a good talk pathway, that is you. Okay, so you want to try to deliver a good talk facing an audience. That's the audience. Okay? So here I am, I'm doing that. But before I can deliver effectively a talk, I have to do a lot of work. Many of you fail to realize as a speaker, you have to do a lot of work. Some of you thought that, especially young graduate students, thought that you can just go out there and then just present it. No one could do that. You have to spend time, think through it, and then design it. So what do you have to design? First, you have to have good content in science. If you don't have good content, you just basically bullshit it, right? Right? So you have to have good content. And then second, you have to develop good perspective. Now, many of you young students fail to realize that in telling a good story, you have to have a good perspective. And then many of the young students often do it the following way. They just pile up their data and then just try to tell the audience what they are. And then people get confused. So you have to develop a perspective. What is the storyline you want to tell people that they can remember? And that will benefit them. Okay? Perspective, you have to develop. I will come back to address this issue later on. And then the next thing is that you have to make good choices. You should not talk about everything under the sun that you have done, because you're simply going to confuse people. You have to make choices. Now, let me argue as a scientist to you why you have to have choices. I want you to sit down here for just within these 30 seconds. Just think for one thing. What is the difference of experience of reading the paper in contrast to listening to a talk? Think about it. You're reading the paper, hold on to it. You read, and you get stuck. What do? You read it again. Or you say, to hell with it, I put it aside, I will come back to read it tomorrow. Or I search for internet, Google it up. Oh, this is what it means. Okay, I continue. So that's reading. What's seminar's experience? You have finite 40 minutes of time to grasp the concept. The speaker has finite 40 minutes of time to deliver the content. There's no recourse. If you fail the audience, they fail to get you. You lost them. You lost them. So that is why you cannot try to cram the seminar with tons of stuff. This is a common problem in Taiwan. So many of them try to cram so many things. I'm going to show you some very, quote, nice example later, okay?